So in this video we're going to be building the F11 ABA variant. Now this is the successor to the first order standard issue F11D and was used primarily by the Sith jet troopers. Oh, oh, oh. Okay, now we can go ahead and start getting this guy together. So as usual, I'm going to be using my Gorilla Glue Super Glue Gel. Always make sure you shake it good before you use it. Now the nice thing about this gun is everything snaps together pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the big barrel piece up here. Now you want to make sure when you're gluing your barrel together that the holes are on the sides and not facing up or down, anything like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this piece. You want the part with the bigger flat edge to go against here. And I'm going to add some glue. A little along the edges here. And then I'm just going to slide it in until it locks, making sure that those holes are nice and parallel. You can also look from the top, make sure that it looks pretty even on side to side. And that's how we start. So now we have the collar piece. The collar piece is basically going to go like that right on top. So I'm going to add a little bit of glue along the edges here, as well as where that collar piece is going to sit. That way the barrel is kind of locked in there. Now this gun does have retaining holes for everything. So you can get little pins or little pieces of wood, things like that, to actually line things up a little bit better. Unfortunately, I am in quarantine right now and cannot get good supplies, but we can still line everything up pretty well without the pins. I'm just going to slide this on. Make sure that the bottom is all nice and lined up straight. Oop. So we get something kind of like that. Now before I do the top piece, there's an insert for this guy that you want to make sure you get in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and glue these two guys together first and then slide it down the tube. So make sure you glue together the parts that have the insert holes. That needs to be able to go down the barrel, and that's the tip. So I'm just going to glue these guys together. Make sure everything stays nice and lined up. And I'm going to give these guys a little squirt of my Instaset. Speed things up a little bit. There we go. Nope. Stay. Good boy. Now this is basically going to go straight down. So I'm going to go ahead, give this some glue, and then it goes right down into the hole, and then make sure it's nice and straight. I'm basically making sure that it's nice and straight with the bottom part. And it's still a little wobbly. That's because this guy's coming in to help lock everything together. So now I'm just going to put some glue along the edge here. A little bit along the sides. also going to put a little bit along the ring up here. And then again, when I line this up, I want to make sure those holes are still nice and straight with the other holes. Make sure everything looks nice and straight. And ha ha ha! There's our cool front barrel. So I'm going to let that sit for a second. We can go on and move to some of the other areas. So now we have the receiver. Now, if I'm looking from back to front, on the left side of the receiver, we have a little back plate. Just goes on like that. Now a lot of these parts are split out like that because those are supposed to be the black parts, the rest are supposed to be the red parts. So it's easier to print or paint. So I'm just going to put a little glue. Stick that guy right in there like that. Now going backwards, we have a couple parts that'll help us lock everything together. The first one is this big long piece. It slides in like that. Now you can tell the right way to slide it because it has holes and holes. Oh, there's no holes there. You want the holes going forward. And I'm going to glue this in first so when I slide on the back part, I have something to kind of guide me as I go. So I can go ahead and add a few drops here. Slide that guy in because that's going to help me line up the back part. Because the back part slides in like that and you want to make sure that those lines all made up. So I'm going to go ahead and add some glue on this guy. And I should still have a little bit of glue left on this guy, but I'll give him a couple more drops. And that's going to help me guide that in and line everything up. Now as I'm holding this, we also have the slide here, which can help line things up. So I'm going to go ahead and give him a few drops. And go ahead and get him on here while I'm doing this to keep everything nice and lined up. So we got it going like that. Now we can finish off this back part by putting the end cap on. And the end cap, you want to make sure that the little feet are facing down towards the bottom. So just give that a couple drops. Line this guy up. Make sure the feet are facing down. And there we go. So that's kind of the back of the receiver part. Now I'm going to go ahead and pre-assemble some of the scope before we put it on. So we basically have the scope, the adjustment knobs with the scope part, the scope attachment part, and then the end caps and a couple of little twists for it. So I'm going to start by attaching the scope mounts together. You basically want them to go together like this, with the ends being flush here in the back. So I'm just going to add some glue. Stick this guy on. Make sure he is straight. You want that top knob to be facing pretty much straight up. Because that top knob is going to get the bigger knob wheel. Put a drop or two, and that's just your cool little knob wheel to go on top. And then the other little baby knob wheel goes on the side. You want it on the left side. So I'm just going to put a drop of glue on here. It basically just sticks on. If I can do this without gluing my fingers to it. Glue's on the side like that. And I'm getting glue all over my fingers. Finally, we have the scope itself. Now the scope just slides through the scope mount. Now you don't really want it sliding around a lot, so I'm going to add some glue in there so it'll stay where I want it to. I'm going to put it right about there. Now I'm also, since I ran it through, I'm just going to make sure I wipe off the glue here on the end. It's easier to wipe it off when it's wet than get it off while it's dry. So you get something like that. And then we have the end caps. The end caps just go on both ends. End cap, yay! And the other end cap. And I bump my little knobby. And this end cap, I need to put the glue on this part. You notice I'm not using very much glue. You don't need to use much. And there we go. Now we have our cool little scope. Now this one should be nice and solid. Yes, it is. And this one should be nice and solid. Yes, it is. So now we can start attaching these guys together. Now this one, it would be helpful to have some pins just to line everything up, but we're going to work around it. Basically, this part goes on. Like so. And then the trigger goes underneath. So I am going to improvise. Let me see here. What did I do with? Let's see here. Ah, these will work. Ha ha ha. Toothpicks. You go ahead and cut one of these just to give me a little help lining this up. I'll bet you these are going to be pretty close to the right diameter. There we go. I don't need much really. I'm just trying to make sure that I know where that should be approximately when I'm lining things up. So you can use anything to get things lined up. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this guy on now. Plus, in this part, in all honesty, having a little bit of a dowel in there would give it a little bit more strength as well. But this should still turn out good. I'm just going to line that up. And there's actually some nice square corners here to make sure I'm lined up correctly. So I'm just going to line up with those square corners. Stay. Make sure those stay nice and lined up. Give her a little squirt. Wait for that to set a little bit. And there we go. So you can see how that gives me a nice little square part there. Because the trigger mechanism is going to line right up like that. There we go, it's starting to set up now. So let's go ahead and lay this up. Maybe it's not setting up. Stay. I also have this zap kicker. This actually turns it into a weld. There we go. Now it's not going anywhere. Line that up. This will help keep it together as well. It's also going to be glued up here. And it's just going to sit right like that. I'm going to do a little bit up here. And there we go. So now we have that bottom part lined up. Da, 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 da. We're getting there. Now on the other side, a little bit of a lump right there. Get rid of that. You want to have the circles facing up. So that's going to fit in there like that. So I'm going to go ahead and give that some glue. Put it in there. And then we have this part, which you want that facing forward. Is going to go on the two little knobbies on the back. And this is the rest of the handguard. Right now our handguard's kind of weak, so that just goes on there. And we're almost there. So now we have the front handle. And this basically just slides on. And then it has these cool little pins that hold it in place. Now you can keep it moving, but it is kind of loose. I would highly recommend gluing everything together. You basically get that like that. So I'm going to go ahead and glue it together. And I need to get these pins out. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little glue on this guy. On both sides. I'm also going to glue in the pins themselves. There we go. Now we still have the trigger, and that just glues right inside there. I'll get back to that. So I want to get the top part done. So we have the rear side assembly that just goes right in there. And then the side itself goes right on top with the bigger part pointing towards the back. And then like I said, the trigger goes right in here, so let's get him going. Make sure he's centered. And there we go. Ho, ho, ho. And another one completed. Yay!